This is Part 2, Episode 136. The Tower of Eternity was their secret, but also their safest place. After perceiving that Long Houchen had teleported back there, they immediately calmed down. Maybe he'd reappear in just a bit. What a shame that they didn't see the stupefied look of the angel demon god Paimon. In the midst of the use of his innate ability, the demon god of clear vision Crocell had disappeared alongside that enemy knight. The effects of teleportation to the Tower of Eternity relaxed Long Houchen greatly. Yet to his surprise, he very rapidly discovered that the deep blue ray adhering to his body hadn't disappeared, but was still entangled with the golden radiance from the Tower of Eternity. A tall silhouette also came to his sight. That teleportation was instantaneous, and it took only a flash for Long Houchen to appear in the first floor of the Tower of Eternity, and along with him was teleported the demon god of clear vision Crocell. Crocell's shock was far greater than Long Houchen's. The instant of the teleportation, he lost control of his innate ability, and was immediately then carried into a spatial transportation that he was unable to resist even at his level of cultivation. At the very moment, he couldn't help but spit a dark blue mouthful of blood. Originally, he was unlikely to suffer great damage, and weakening with the angel demon god Paimon's assistance. But during the process of the teleportation, his innate ability was still maintained, and interrupting it was impossible. Its continual use and the spatial travel's influence inflicted on him substantial damage. The stronger an ability gets, the greater the backlash it could carry, just like for a spiritual stove. This demon god of clear vision Crocell's own cultivation was actually insufficient for him to rank among the top 4-something. The 5 or 6 immediately lower-ranked demon gods were all above him in fighting strength. The reason why he could rank 4th-9th was his innate ability. Crocell was known as the demon god of clear vision, able to scout out the enemy's true circumstances from a very large range. His magic belonged to the psychic type. At the same time, just like the great majority of the demon gods, he was a dual magic and martial cultivator. Any spell of illusion was useless in front of him. Also, his innate ability wasn't so powerful in itself, but things were different when he teams with other demon gods. This innate ability called Clear Vision's godly pull could, in a certain range, lock his mental force on an opponent, and it had a powerful teleportation effect, able to instantly teleport the target in front of him. In some sense, this Clear Vision's godly pull was a different approach producing the same results as the Saint Spiritual Stove, only far more powerful than the latter. After all, the Saint Spiritual Stove just pulled, whereas the Clear Vision's godly pull was capable of direct teleportation. Just think, if Crocell's teleportation had succeeded, Long Houchen would then be facing the instant surrounding of 8 great demon gods. No matter how gifted he could be, and even if he could unleash his whole strength promptly, and have the defense of his divine tools, the outcome would still be certain death. That's the encirclement of 8 great demon gods, giving one not the slightest chance. Of course, because of Clear Vision's godly pull's power, it has great limitations. Crocell can only use it once a day, and by only relying on his own demon god pillar, regardless of whether it succeeds or fails, it would put him in a very long state of psychic weakness. But that's unless another demon god consents to support him with his own mental force, greatly lessening this backlash. At the same time, Clear Vision's godly pull cannot be used against an enemy with a cultivation or mental force surpassing his own. As long as the enemy's spiritual energy or mental force exceeds his, the odds of success lower greatly. Another restriction is the warning that Chiao Yonghao gave. Clear Vision's godly pull can only be used on one target, so if Long Houchen had grabbed someone else, it would immediately have failed. That's the reason why the angel demon god Paimon released his angel domain, for the sake of covering up the use of his ability. This Clear Vision's godly pull already made the warrior temple suffer large losses. 4 powerhouses at the grade of War Emperor died this way in the demon god's hands. That's why the arrangement of Chiao Yonghao's formation was so tight. The powerhouses from the warrior temple was standing 2 by 2 to avoid leaving Crocell any chance. But Long Houchen was different. He had no prior knowledge of the demon god of clear vision Crocell's ability, which is what led to this. Someone walking frequently on the edge of a river has someday to wet his shoes. Crocell walked far too much along night roads, and finally met his nemesis, encountering this time Long Houchen. Long Houchen's natural mental force was exceptional, and far above powerhouses of the same level. But Crocell was after all a demon god of the 9th step, and with his magical attribute being the psychic attribute. As such, Houchen's mental force was still below his. Unless his cultivation breaks through the 9th step, he cannot compete with the demon god of clear vision. But that powerful mental force enabled Long Houchen to respond promptly. As the time required for the teleportation increased with the opposing mental force, Long Houchen had at his disposal a few seconds' time, and succeeded in activating the Tower of Eternity in this span. The Tower of Eternity obviously had a greater precedence than Clear Vision's godly pull. How could the demon god of Clear Vision compare to a supradivine tool ranked existence? Moreover, Long Houchen was its successor, and someone he could count on to bring many more souls. In a time of great danger, this supra-divine tool would obviously come to his rescue. However, as Clear Vision's godly pull was in the end enhanced through the demon god's pillar's power, it also gained fantastic boosts, which is how this strange result happened. The angel of Clear Vision Crocell really managed to teleport Long Houchen in front of him, but at the same time Long Houchen relied on the Tower of Eternity, teleporting the two of them here by that way. The two teleportations had succeeded, but Long Houchen also escaped mortal peril. What's this place? How did you escape? Crocell was full of doubts and shock. Looking at the opposite Long Houchen, he couldn't help but ask, as in the meantime his hands separated, letting a long blade appear in between them. Black flames lit his long blade, and in the meantime, twisting undulations surrounded visibly Crocell's body. Facing the enemy that had countered his own Clear Vision's godly pull, he was extremely wary. At the time he discovered that Crocell was teleported to the Tower of Eternity alongside him, he was also in great shock. When Crocell asked that question, he drew back very swiftly, then the divine snail shield of sun and moon appeared in front of his chest. Opposite to Crocell's complete reaction of puzzlement, Long Houchen already guessed the truth of the matter from the current situation and the previous circumstances. I didn't escape, but countered your move. Long Houchen replied coldly, and from the powerful aura released by the enemy's body, he could determine that is a demon god. Just before, he seemed to have been beside the demon god leading the enemies. Long Houchen still remembered Crocell's appearance from that time. One could only admit that this demon god had very handsome looks, with the addition of the 6 wings on his back making him look even more captivating. Crocell had already calmed down, and wasn't impatient to attack Long Houchen. It's another space. Since you have the means to teleport here, you must naturally have the means to teleport back. Bring me out, and I'll spare your life. Stalling for time was to his advantage. Crocell was terrified of this space, but being after all a demon god expert at the psychic attribute, he had some understanding of this place. He knew that to be able to go through a spatial travel of this extent, Long Houchen surely had a kind of spatial key. By grabbing that spatial key, he naturally couldn't return back to Shingmordalu. But the most important was the psychic internal injury he had sustained. He couldn't see through Long Houchen, especially after his release of the divine snail shield. With his current injuries, he didn't have the complete confidence of being able to get away in one piece after killing Long Houchen. As such, he spoke to stall for time, and giving himself some time to recover. The enemy was after all only at the 8th step, so he had the full confidence of being able to kill Long Houchen after recovering partly from the psychic internal injury. Back then, the last ranked snake demon god was already as cunning as a fox, to say nothing about the 49th ranked Crocell. Although he still didn't have a domain, his cultivation was thoroughly at the 9th step. Spare my life. What a pity, I have no plans to spare you. Long Houchen ridiculed him. Like Crocell was scheming against him, the same happened on his side. Long Houchen was now extending his senses fully, making an all-out effort to determine Crocell's level of cultivation. The enemy was without a doubt at the 9th step, but great differences existed between different powerhouses of the 9th step. Crocell's previous deep blue spit of blood couldn't be faked, and was a clear proof of wounds. However, Long Houchen didn't know about the intensity of his injury. The inside of the Tower of Eternity was like Long Houchen's main grounds. He was now determining the gap of strength between the two of them, and thus wouldn't rush into battle. In front of Crocell, Long Houchen was disadvantaged in terms of cultivation, but he had his own aspects of superiority. First, he was fully confident in preventing Crocell from connecting with his demon god pillar. A demon god having lost his pillar was like an ordinary powerhouse of the 9th step and no more. Secondly, the enemy was wounded, and no matter to what extent, at least he wasn't in good condition. And from his powerful mental force, his injury should be on the psychic side. Facing a powerhouse of psychic attribute, Long Houchen wasn't afraid in the slightest. Even the 12th ranked emo demon god Sytry had suffered the backlash of her own forbidden spell. In a fight of the 8th step against the 9th step, maybe he could really leave this demon god here forever. Thinking of that, Long Houchen's heartbeat couldn't help but accelerate. Should he fight the demon god in a duel? Although he had killed the goblin knight Seer, both Seer and Andromalius were still demon gods of the 8th step. Although they could temporarily reach the 9th step thanks to their demon god pillars, there was still a difference between the 9th step and that. Can I really win? Long Houchen didn't dare affirm with certainty, but already made his decision to give it a try in any case. Hearing Long Houchen's words, Crocell raised his eyebrows, and contrary to expectations, smiled. Young knight of the 8th step, you're attempting to challenge a mighty opponent of the 9th step. I know what you are thinking, that I can't have the assistance of my demon god pillar here, right? Even so, how could you be a match against me? You have only one option, to serve or to die. Saying that, Crocell raised the long blade in his right hand, and the pitch-black edge of his blade was launched at Long Houchen. This blade wasn't moving very fast, but the instant it struck out, Long Houchen only felt as if locked by Crocell, and couldn't avoid the blow no matter which way he tried to evade. Crocell's eyes had already turned deep blue. The demon god of clear vision was not just talk. In time of battle, his clear vision technique had crucial uses. It was able to create decisive opportunities against the enemy, as well as predict his next moves. Under those conditions, his attacks were undoubtedly very effective. None of the 72 demon gods was a simple character, whether in strength or intelligence. Crocell's attack aimed at intimidating, as well as probing. He was unclear on Long Houchen's precise level of cultivation. Long Houchen drew back slightly, and his body abruptly traced an arc, wielding the divine snail shield of sun and moon with both his arms. A resonant, buzzing sound spread out on the whole first floor of the Tower of Eternity. Both Long Houchen's feet slid backwards, only stopping on the edge of the tower. As the divine snail shield spread glitters of intense orange light, Long Houchen's body flashed in light, as the surroundings shook continuously under the flashes of different colors. After bearing this attack, Long Houchen's face was covered in astonishment. Indeed, he sensed that Crocell's internal spiritual energy seemed just above 100,000, definitely not reaching the second rank of the 9th step. But even at such a level of cultivation, relying on divine obstruction actually turned out to be totally insufficient. His body still glowed with the light of bright vengeance. The ability formed along with divine obstruction to reflect some damage back to the enemy, but the soul-binding chain's light also spread. In other words, he had been wounded. Although they weren't deep, despite the divine snail shield's defense and damage sharing with the others, he still sustained some light wounds. From this could be seen the dominance of Crocell's strength. Little fly, you dare show such insolence. Crocell didn't stop at that. After the first strike came off smoothly, the long blade chopped at Houchen, drawing a pitch-black brilliance onto the sky, which aimed straight at Long Houchen like a bolt of thunder. His blade's edge seems to be using an ability similar to Spiritual Highland _ Long Houchen determined instantly from the first blow. What he didn't know at all was that in the demon's ranks, every demon god, without his own clan certainly had far less influential strength, but the demon god emperor encouraged them, frequently giving them the priority for some powerful equipment. Therefore, individual demon gods had comparatively better practical fighting strength. And although the demon god of clear vision Crocell's strength was ranked rather low among the individual demon gods, he couldn't possibly have obtained the 49th seat without sufficient strength. He was a real powerhouse of the 9th step, and furthermore, had the clear vision technique at his disposal. If his cultivation reached the point of being able to unleash a domain, maybe he could rank among the top 36. In this probing, Long Houchen immediately suffered a loss. However, as a god's chosen one, he naturally couldn't let himself continuously suffer losses. Seeing the second attack of the enemy arrive, Long Houchen's figure strangely disappeared without warning nor trace. Bang. Crocell's attack landed directly on the Tower of Eternity, causing a series of buzzes. He couldn't help but blank out. Even with the clear vision technique, he actually couldn't tell out how Long Houchen had gone off. Long Houchen obviously couldn't possibly teleport himself back to Shingmor Dalu. A time of adjustment was required before teleporting back, and besides, he could absolutely not leave Crocell here by himself. Otherwise, if he explores and finds out about the deep secrets of the Tower of Eternity, and manages to obtain something, things could become a real pain. In a flash of light, Long Houchen reappeared in his previous location, and this time, the hill-sized five-headed Haoyue was alongside him. Outside from the teleportation to the Tower of Eternity, Long Houchen also had his blood contract pact with Hao Yue. In the battle against Crocell inside the Tower of Eternity, Long Houchen's greatest reliance was the possibility to show his full abilities without any worries. Even if he didn't manage to kill Crocell, the latter still had no way to escape the Tower of Eternity. Graw Hao Yue's 5 heads snarled together, and deep purple intent rushed forth from him, shrouding the opposite Crocell. Immediately, the previously proud-looking demon god of clear vision lost his head as if facing a monster, already full of shock. You're. Immediately, he became unable to finish his sentence. Long Houchen obviously understood that the opponent had recognized his identity. Recovering the divine snail shield, he pointed his right hand forward and immediately let golden light surge out from him. Yating charmingly appeared in front of him, and in her hands were held up 2 heavy swords. Master. Yating bowed slightly, holding the 2 heavy swords out before Long Houchen. Long Houchen took up the aria of the Goddess of Light, and then Blue Rain Hibiscus of Light. Immediately, his manners made an earth-shattering change, with mighty sword intent bursting from him without reserve. His aura was far greater than before. _that_human, _that_human. Crocell stabilized his posture after drawing 10 or so meters back. He tenaciously stared at Hao Yue, bursting with great fury. Immediately, he became totally unable to maintain his precious calm. The demon gods succeeded each other through many generations, but not all memories were passed between them. The stronger the demon god, the more of the past memories he'd inherit. That's how the demon god emperor could immediately speak out Hao Yue's other name, but this 49th ranked demon god of clear vision Crocell couldn't tell it outright. But his engraved instincts were still present. Although he couldn't say Hao Yue's identity, he had a deep, threatened feeling that came out, alongside an extremely great fear. Last time, when Long Houchen vanquished the goblin demon god Seer, he immediately had Hao Yue transform into armor and merge with his golden foundation armor, but he hadn't had time then to observe Hao Yue's changes. He only had felt that Hao Yue was a lot more powerful, but giving another look, Hao Yue's stature had already surpassed 15 meters, and his aura became more substantial. Faintly, a unique imposing demeanor was coming out from him. Based on Long Houchen's senses, the current Hao Yue hadn't yet broken through the 9th step, making him inferior to Houchen, roughly reaching the peak of the 7th step. But his aura at the peak of the 7th step could actually instill such a fear to a powerhouse of the 9th step, such as the demon god of clear vision Crocell. Why was that? Long Houchen tried to ask Hao Yue many times about the issue in the past, but the latter avoided the subject every time, sometimes looking clearly at a loss, as if unable to recall it himself. Furthermore, at the time he had followed Long Houchen, he had only 1 head, and gained his second one with the help from Houchen's blood. How could such a small Hao Yue know so many things already? In Long Houchen's guesses, the real threat to the demons was very probably Hao Yue's ancestor. And the same goes for the ones from his own world. In other words, Hao Yue's species was very strong, and he would definitely keep growing stronger in the future. That's Long Houchen's judgment, therefore making it natural that Hao Yue wouldn't know about his own such circumstances. Hao Yue now had 5 heads of different elements, being light, fire, wind, water, and poison. Of his 5 heads, Little Light was the central one, its neighboring ones being Little Flame and Little Wind, and the outer ones Little Blue and Little Purple. The 5 heads looked at Crocell with cold gazes, faintly leaking out an aura of hatred. Just like the demons seemed terrified when running into Hao Yue showed an intense hate in front of the demon gods. Could they have an innate blood enmity? Long Houchen didn't understand this even one bit. After all, Hao Yue wasn't a being from this dimension. So how could he show such hatred to the demon gods? It could be estimated to be a bad compatibility engraved in his genes. On his thick neck Hao Yue had another protruding area. This bulge was extremely large, and according to Long Houchen's knowledge, one reaching to this point could break at any time, followed by another evolution from him. Perhaps it would give birth to a 6th head. Hao Yue let out another low roar, letting out a dense fighting intent. He was seeking to fight, and wanted to rush straight at Crocell. Of course, Long Houchen didn't let him do that. Hao Yue was after all still only at the peak of the 7th step. If the enemy's attack inflicted heavy damage on him, Houchen would regret it greatly. After a short time of soul-bounded communication, Long Houchen soared high, leaving Hao Yue's back. Yating still remained at the same area, and started to chant. Long Houchen didn't summon Star King here. The Tower of Eternity was filled with an intense aura of death, and he was unwilling to let it influence him. But was it really that Long Houchen didn't have other forces than Hao Yue and Yating at his disposal? Of course not. Although unwilling to utilize this force, he came to have restraining fears after the previous display of strength Crocell showed. Therefore, he didn't dare show any reservations. This video will end here.